Hello everyone and welcome to today's Tidbit, where we cover all of life's issues in 5 minutes or less. Ish. And today I really want to talk to you about the idea of church, because this has been pressing on me a little bit. What is church to you? When people ask you what church is, do you know what to tell them? And I think this is something we need to address, because if you do go to church, you should probably know exactly what it is you're into. And if you don't go to church, you deserve an explanation as to what goes on Sundays. So what is church? Well, I guess it's good to start with what church isn't. Because I think a lot of people have the idea that church is, well, you go there on Sundays and Wednesday nights, and you sing songs, you feel good, you listen to the preacher, and that's it. Church is there to meet our needs, to please us, to raise our emotional downfalls. While I think church does some of those things, I think that's probably an incomplete idea. I feel that's probably pretty inadequate in describing what church is. So if I had to break it down into a few things, I would say most of all that if we look at what church was in the New Testament, the word used to describe church, the word we translate church, is ecclesia, which in its most literal translation means assembly. So yes, it is getting together, but what is it doing? What are we doing when we meet together? So if I were to define church, I would define it simply: church is life together. Church is life together. So if we break this down, I want to look through a few different aspects of what exactly life together would entail. And I want to say the first thing is, to enjoy life together, we have to pray together. In Mark 15:28, the veil was torn that allowed every person who wanted to come to God in prayer, they could do that through Christ's sacrifice on the cross. And we see in Acts 4:24 that the church did gather together in prayer. They did it on a weekly basis. At our church right now, I think we do a pretty good job of executing this. Every week we gather together our hands and we pray. The disciples were constantly in prayer together. Jesus, when he took his disciples up on the mount, he desired for them to be in prayer with him. In fact, he was upset when they fell asleep. Prayer is a communal aspect that brings us to the throne room of God, but it does it as a community. And so I think it's important that as we look at what church is and an aspect of how we live life together, it is important that we pray together. You hear the aspect, where 2 or 3 or more are gathered in our name, God is there also. Well, it's a little bit out of context, but it does hold water to the fact that when we pray together, there is power in it. So praying together is one aspect of church. When we look at church, when we look at life together, it is that we pray together. The second one that I want to look at, the second aspect of life together that I want to look at, is fellowship. And I think this is vitally important, because fellowship, when we look at it, we come together on Sundays and we gather around the Lord's table. And we fellowship as a community. We come together and we remember an event. And this has power outside the church. We see what fellowship is because it has power. For us to take moments to remember something that happened and to look around and see everybody that was there with us. It brings us together. It allows us to live life together. I think there's something more to fellowship. I think as God's people, it can be very easy to get sucked into this always work, always go, doing ministry, that type of fellowship. But I think fellowship is also simply living together. Go camping together, grill out, get together, go on a boat, go on a canoe ride. By golly, God created us to enjoy life. God created us to fellowship together, and God created us to fellowship in community together. And I think it's important that we remember that fellowship, as much as it is remembering together Christ's sacrifice, maybe not as much, but it's also learning to be in community and just have a good time. God calls us and wants us to enjoy life. So as we're moving forward, I think the next aspect of living life together that I want to hit on, the next aspect of church, is service. In Acts 7, we can see a very clear example where the leaders of the church, whom we often expect to do all of the service for us, were overwhelmed. As a church grows, as a community grows, the ability of the leadership to take care of everything that needs to be taken care of eventually just becomes unsustainable. They can't do it. And so they delegate to the congregation, to the people. They say, hey, you guys need to step out. And I think that still holds true today. Service together, going out in the streets and getting together and cleaning yards, shoveling sidewalks, servicing the poor, helping the widows, helping the sick, the down and out. Rick Warren says that the church is the hope of the world, and I think he's right. We can't just assume that the people that we pay on Sundays to stand up and preach are the ones who are also going to go out and do all the service. Sure, that's expected of them too, but as the church, we can see clearly that we're also called as a community to do service together.